My name is David, and I can tell you that running a household like mine is no easy feat. There's my wife, Anna, and alongside her comes our full house. My stepdaughters Sophie, 23, and Rachel, 26, their kids, and my own daughter Emily, who just turned 16. The daily grind lights up with the chaos that only children can bring. Sophie and Rachel ended up back at home when life threw its curveballs at them. They have their moments, sure, but it's Emily, my girl, who's the unseen glue in this place. She babysits her nieces and nephews, keeping their young energy in check, making sure the house doesn't turn upside down. It started out as a favor, but Emily got good at it and started to see it as her job. She had a right to be paid for her time. That's what I always taught her. However, Sophie and Rachel didn't always see eye to eye with us on that. They tried to get away with paying her next to nothing, until Anna stepped in and laid down the law. My wife made sure Emily was compensated fairly. Sometimes you have to put a foot down to keep things right. That's what family is about, fighting, but also fixing things. We manage to keep the peace most of the time. My stepdaughters do their parts. Anna's at the heart of it all. And Emily, she's growing up more than I realized. She's learning that in life and in family, you stand up for yourself. And if you're lucky, you have others to back you up. This family of ours, it's a hodgepodge of sorts, stitched together with different threads, all trying to fit. It takes patience, understanding, and a firm hand to keep it all going. And I've always kept my cool, no matter what. I'm the guy who fixes the broken toys, calms down the kids, and tries to give everyone a fair shake. But I know deep down, any family, no matter how strong, can only stretch so far before something snaps. And with a bunch of strong-willed people under one roof, I've got to be ready for when that day comes. We needed a break. That much was clear to anyone who stepped into our bustling home. So when the idea of a family vacation came up, it felt like a breath of fresh air. I had been planning it for weeks, a getaway to a beach resort with rooms overlooking the ocean, where the sunrise could wash away the stains of our daily hustle. I announced the trip one evening over dinner. Eyes lit up, forks paused midair, and the usual banter quieted down to excited whispers. Emily, with her young heart and eager spirit, seemed particularly thrilled. How could she not be? It was her first trip out of the country, a chance to see a world beyond our little town. But as we started planning what to pack and which sights to see, Sophie and Rachel put forth the idea that Emily should stay home. Their reasoning felt flimsy at best. They claimed the kids were used to her, and that switching to a different babysitter would upset them. In the same breath, they casually mentioned Emily might not enjoy the beach as much as we expected her to. The fairness in me knew this was wrong. Emily deserved to experience something exciting and new. The arguments went back and forth, my wife trying to mediate until I couldn't take it anymore. I put my foot down. This was a family vacation. We either all went or none of us went. The decision was made. Emily was coming with us. Preparation for the trip took over our lives. Bags piled up at the foot of every bed. Lists of what we needed were double-checked, then triple-checked. Excitement brewed into a frenzy, and despite Sophie and Rachel's initial objections, it seemed we reached common ground. Emily's anticipation grew each day, her smile a permanent fixture that made the extra work worth it. As the departure date loomed closer, the issue of babysitting had to be addressed. Anna and I decided to hire a professional for the 3 days we'd be gone. It irked Sophie and Rachel, but we wouldn't budge. This trip was about unity, a chance to fortify the bonds of our jigsaw family. It was going to be perfect, or so we thought. The morning of our much-anticipated departure arrived, and the house was abuzz with last-minute preparations. Suitcases zipped closed, travel itineraries printed, and passports collected. That was until Emily, with a puzzled look, rifled through her bag and came up empty-handed. "My passport's gone," she said, each word punctuated with growing panic. We scoured the house, overturning cushions and sifting through drawers. As minutes ticked away, so did our chances of making the flight. Sophie and Rachel suggested with increasing insistence that we should head to the airport without Emily. "She can stay and watch the kids," they said yet again, trying to mask their desperation as concern. But I wasn't having any of it. There was no way I was leaving my daughter behind, not for a vacation or any other reason. As I tried to calm Emily and continue the search, the hired babysitter arrived, perplexed by the commotion. Sophie, with a stern shake of her head, instructed the baffled woman to leave. The situation spiraled as accusations flew and suspicions surfaced. I saw the flicker of guilt across Sophie's face as she caught my stern look. The truth spilled out in a hesitant whisper. "We hid it." My heart sank. I had expected disagreements and petty squabbles, but this betrayal from my own stepdaughters struck a chord. Where were the family values I had tried to instill? A fierce argument erupted. My voice, usually calm and rational, now boomed through the house. I demanded Sophie tell us where the passport was. She looked to Rachel, but neither stepped forward with the truth. The tense standoff lasted until my ultimatum reached their ears. Find the passport, or the trip is canceled. It took a threat, but the passport was miraculously found behind a loose tile in the bathroom, of all places. Hands shook, and apologies were mumbled. But the joy of finding the document was overshadowed by the sting of deceit. Emily clutched her passport, her earlier enthusiasm dampened by the sobering realization that her stepsisters had plotted against her. At that moment, as I looked into Emily's troubled eyes, I knew our planned retreat could never be the carefree escape we had hoped for. The trust we needed to pack alongside our luggage was missing, and without it, no destination, no matter how exotic, could repair the torn fabric of our family's unity. The revelation of Sophie's and Rachel's deceit clawed at me, tearing through my composure. With the passport now in hand, the house was silent, except for the deafening echo of betrayal. Emily's hurt eyes haunted me, and the trust I had in my stepdaughters shattered like delicate glass under a heavy boot. I seethed with indignation, my usual tolerant nature giving way to outraged disbelief. Their selfish act to manipulate the situation reeked of utter disregard for Emily's feelings. It called everything into question: my decisions, our family's solidarity, and the respect we owed each other. The vacation was now tainted, an unfathomable reward for their conspiracy. I did what I felt was necessary. I canceled the entire trip. The airline was surprisingly understanding when I cited a family emergency. The minutes that followed were a tightrope walk over a chasm of mixed emotions. Sophie and Rachel withdrew, retreating upstairs as if physical distance could shelter them from the storm of reprimands. But it was Anna's reaction that stung the most. Rather than standing with me, she anchored herself to a silence that was thick with disapproval. When her words finally came, they were cold, razor-sharp. "You overreacted," she said, accusing me of punishing the family for one misguided deed. It pained me that she saw it as a minor misstep rather than the deliberate sabotage it was. They argued the girls were just looking out for their children, but at what cost? Was our family's unity so expendable? Arguments raged. Words flew like arrows, each hitting its mark. I stood alone in my anger, vilified for upholding a principle, while the instigators of the chaos were comforted by Anna's misplaced sympathy. The girls peered from behind their mother's skirts, eyes downcast, and I felt my role as the family's protector waver under the weight of divided loyalties. The trip that was meant to bring us together had splintered us further apart. I was told that I was unreasonable, that my decision was an overreaction. Yet the more they defended Sophie's and Rachel's actions, the more isolated I became, until I was an outlander in my own family. The house we shared felt foreign, the walls echoing a familiar refrain of disappointment and misunderstanding. I had thought we were knitting our stories into one shared narrative, but in one swift moment the threads unraveled, and I was left holding the frayed ends. The days that followed were a testament to the old saying, "A house is not a home." Ours had become a building filled with strained smiles and heavier silences. Sophie and Rachel kept to themselves upstairs, glancing my way with a mixture of regret and defensiveness. Emily tiptoed around the tension, her usual bright spirit dimmed by the gloom of the house. I tried to navigate the churning waters of our family's discord, reaching out to each member, searching for some semblance of the bond we had before. I sat down with Sophie and Rachel separately, trying to find the thread that led them to their decision. Why would you do something like this? Their answers varied, but at the core was fear. Fear of the unknown, fear for their children's well-being, fear of missing out on a promotion at work due to absence. Their intentions, misplaced as they were, rooted in concern. But understanding their motives didn't erase the breach of trust, nor did it mend the gap between us. I explained that what they had done was not just unfair to Emily, it was unfair to the entire family, an undermining of the collective trust we built over the years. They listened, eyes downcast, the weight of their actions settling in. Anna and I had our share of talks too, her trying to bridge the gap between my wrath and the girls' remorse. They did it out of love for their children, she insisted. And while I could see her point, it didn't excuse the betrayal. Love doesn't deceive, I countered, frustrated that she couldn't see how damaging their ploy was, to Emily most of all. As for Emily, she was confused, caught in the crossfire between the adults she loved. I assured her she was not to blame, reinforcing that her stepsister's actions were their own doing. But the reassurance did little to chase away the shadows of the incident. The relationship between Anna, the girls, and me was like a broken vase we were painstakingly trying to glue back together. But cracks were evident, the foundation of trust weakened by the episode. I held on to the hope that with time and dialogue we could restore what was damaged. If nothing else, for the sake of providing a stable and loving environment for the grandchildren who watched us with their innocent eyes. The house had settled into a silent stalemate, each of us navigating the shared space with a caution reserved for walking on thin ice. Our roles had shifted, and the lines that once connected us now seemed frayed, our connection tentative and fragile. As the days passed, I watched for signs of healing. I've always believed in the power of conversation, so I called a family meeting. We gathered in the living room, a neutral ground that had seen both laughter and tears. They were all there, Anna, Sophie, Rachel, and Emily, my fractured family sitting together in uneasy anticipation. "I want us to talk," I began, my voice steady. "What happened can't be undone, but we need to decide where we go from here." My look passed over each one of them, lingering on Emily's anxious face. "We've all messed up, one way or another, but it's what we do now that will define us as a family." Sophie spoke first, her voice tinged with regret. "I just wanted what was best for my kids. I didn't think about the bigger picture." Rachel nodded in agreement, her earlier defiance replaced by a quieter understanding. "We should have trusted Emily would be okay with the sitter," she admitted. Then Anna, her eyes meeting mine for what felt like the first time in days, added her piece. "We've all learned something here. As much as we try to protect the ones we love, sometimes we end up doing more harm than good." I could see the struggle in her to balance her maternal instincts against the fairness I sought. The room felt heavy with unspoken emotions as Emily finally shared her thoughts. "I know you didn't want to hurt anyone," she said softly, her words aimed at her stepsisters. "But next time, maybe just talk to me first?" The simplicity of her request cut through the complexity of our adult machinations. Here we were, trying to weave our way out of a mess we'd made, and all Emily wanted was to be considered, to be part of the process, not an afterthought. It wasn't a Hollywood ending with hugs and tears, but rather an acknowledgement of our failings and a commitment to do better. "Let's move forward," I concluded, not just because we have to, but because we want to. In the days that followed, we found our new normal. The kids' laughter returned, drawing us out of our shells. We were cautious, yes, but there was a newfound respect in our interactions. We took baby steps toward rebuilding the weakened bonds, aware that trust, once breached, took time to restore. Our last family photo sat on the mantelpiece, a reminder of a time before the passport incident. We weren't ready to take a new one yet, not until the smiles reached our eyes again. But I was hopeful, because if there was one thing I had learned through all this, it was the resilience of family. And maybe, just maybe, the roots of our love ran deeper than the cracks that had appeared.